5 SEC teams down, but for the ones who won, there's still 5 games to go if you want to win a national championship. We have gotten through Thursday and Friday, aka round 1, the round of 64 of the NCAA tournament. Thank you for joining us again once again on the road to Arizona. We got so many things to talk about. Vols look like a 2 seed. Alabama hangs 100 again, and Texas A&M gets past Nebraska in round 1 with a huge matchup coming up in round 2. Just a huge opening round for the SEC and the NCAA tournament.
Join us in our recap of round 1, and welcome to the madness.
Maddie, let's talk about the winners first. Vols got the job done against St. Peter's, and it was a business trip for Rick Barnes and company. Dominant performance for the Tennessee Volunteers. They win this one 83-49 against St. Peter's. Zakai Ziegler with a double-double. Jonas Adu and Dalton Connect with big nights. This is exactly what you wanted to see from the Vols bouncing back after their loss in the SEC tournament. Maddie, this was a good performance. What did you think of the Vols' performance against St. Peter's?
A huge game for the Vols here, especially when you consider their last outing, and I think it's going to be a massive momentum builder for them going forward. Obviously, not an easy road when you're in the tournament to continue to play, but I think this really helped them get there. Just looking over some of their numbers, a Tennessee team we're kind of used to seeing at over 50% from the field, 45% from 3, a massive 47 boards. While they did play against St. Peter's, it was a fantastic start to the tournament for them and kind of a turnaround for us here in the SEC.
Yeah, definitely was needed because we've got a serious question that we're going to have to ask ourselves here in a little bit. Like, do we suck? It's rough, just being real. But yeah, Connect and Adu had big games. I'm with you. The SEC needed this win to close the night out after a horrible 0-3 start to the tournament. And we're going to get to all that mess in a minute. But yeah, no, this was exactly what you wanted. They didn't allow St. Peter's to score 30 points and a half. This defense was dominant. The offense took care of business. You couldn't ask for a better performance because you got guys all over the place getting the job done, and you thoroughly blew out St. Peter's. So you got to rest a lot of guys for your second game and the one upcoming. I think if you're Rick Barnes, this is exactly the result that you wanted. There's not a lot we could say other than they did the job they were supposed to do against St. Peter's, and you're pleased with that. But I mean, like, just look at how many people got into this game when you look at the box sheet. You got the 5 starters, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 guys after that, 14 guys. They got the whole bench out there playing basketball for Tennessee. I mean, JP Estrella saw 8 minutes in this game, dominant performance. What else do you want? Like, Tennessee gets the job done. And I think that's the easiest headline in this entire thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at, like you said, look at the box, and you've got all but 3 guys contributing points there. Definitely a cool game for sure for Tennessee when you've got the Ziegler brothers facing off against each other. So I'm sure that was an added point of intensity there to try and get the edge for the Vols. But like you said, I really love the distribution of this game. Obviously, you had players that had a huge night, like you said, with Jonas Adu, Dalton Connect, both contributing fantastic numbers. But they're all over the board, so that tells us as the Vols move forward, we're not going to have to rely on 1 or 2 people like you see with a lot of teams going through this first round. So I think this helps us kind of look forward and give us some hope that they're going to make it a lot further than those teams that are focusing on 1 to 2 players to contribute everything.
Tennessee was a team that we definitely liked at the beginning of this, and yeah, things have gone pretty well. But let's go ahead and let's preview this Texas game they got coming up. Down low to me in this game is very intriguing. Adu versus Dizu is going to be something to watch. Which guy has the bigger night to keep their offense churning in this game? and who's going to have the bigger game defensively in this one. And then the backcourt's also very interesting. Tennessee may have the deeper rotation of guards, but we know at times Dalton Connect is the dude that may have to get things done for them. For Texas, they got Max Abmas, and he's a March Madness legend. You may remember him from Oral Roberts in 2021 when they beat Ohio State and made the Sweet 16, and they also had a solid season last year. But ended up short against Duke in that game. But both these guys are guys who are going to be highlights to watch for this game. Maddie, any other thoughts that you just want to make sure that are highlighted in this one before we get into it a little bit more?
I mean, you touched on my big exclamation point there for Texas. Max Amos is a guy that they're going to have to watch out for. He contributed a lot going through the conference tournament, especially at the end of the year. You really saw him step up when it came to conference play. So I think we're going to have a big face off against him, Dalton Connect. And then other guys like Gainey coming off the bench and Zakai Ziegler. And hopefully we saw some light from Santiago Vescovi in that first game. So
Begging for
might be a
that.
big matchup there too.
Yeah, begging for Santiago Vescovi to get his game turned on. We've been waiting all season for it, man. But yeah, no, Texas has struggled a little bit with some injuries this season. Of course, we all know this is the Rick Barnes Bowl, coaching against his former team in Texas in this one. Another big note that just with what Texas has been able to do this season, Texas has not beaten a top end talent in KenPom. Texas is 3-9 against top 35 KenPom teams, and they have no wins against the top 30 in KenPom. But Texas is a relatively balanced team with a decent offense, or a good offense and a decent defense. It took them a minute to get rolling against Colorado State the other night, but they got the job done there. This is going to be an intriguing one, but it makes sense. So the path, if they want to get this, if Tennessee wins this game, they'll be facing either Creighton or Oregon in the Sweet 16. If Tennessee were to get Creighton, that should be an incredible basketball game that almost feels like a coin flip right now. And I think Tennessee would match up well at times, but Creighton's going to be a difficult opponent. So just who knows who's going to win that one. You're preferring Oregon. If you're Tennessee, I think Tennessee matches up really well with the Ducks. But having a week's rest after playing Creighton after this game, and then if you have to face Dana Altman, that's going to be Dana Altman's good at preparing, so that's going to be a good basketball game, one way or the other if you end up facing Oregon. So it's March. I have no idea what's going to happen. No one has any idea what's going to happen. But the Vols, of course, need to deal with the game that's in front of them right now. Texas is going to be a big, big matchup. All right, so SEC went 3-5, so we only got 3 winners to talk about here. Maddie, you caught the Alabama-Charleston game tonight. Another 100-point performance for the Crimson Tide in this one. They didn't blow out Charleston, but they had it certainly in hand. No other way to say it. What were your takeaways from the game?
Yeah, for sure. Watching this one, it's the Alabama team we've talked about all season. Offense, offense, offense. They ended up shooting over 62% from the field, almost 60% from three. Thankfully their free throw rating got better as it went throughout the game, and actually saw them pull up with a little bit of defense too. So gave me a little glimmer of hope for Alabama as they move on. Absolutely huge game for Mark Sears. He showed off his high basketball IQ and his skill as a floor general.
30-point game.
29 points, 9 assists. So another huge game for him. They benched him a little bit to try and save some legs near the end. And someone we haven't seen as big as lately, after his concussion protocol, Wrightsell. Coming up strong with 17 points and 4 rebounds. So we're starting to see him kind of looking like himself again. So a big game for Alabama. Kind of seeing what we're used to. We got some of those freshmen in there making a move. Sam Walters hitting a couple jumpers. Nice dunk too off of a steal. So that was a solid contribution. And Jaron Stevenson. So hopefully getting them a little bit more experience is going to help them out further along in the tournament and then maybe on next year.
This was a good matchup for Alabama, in my opinion. You're right. Sears was a star in this game. And this is probably the healthiest we've seen Alabama in a long time this season. This team needed to get healthy. It needed to get right. But yeah, not a huge game, though, for Grant Nelson, which was a little bit surprising. But I don't think he needed to have a big game when everybody else is having a big game. Wrightsell Wrightsell, Sears, and Estrada all getting to double figures in this one for the Tide. Everybody who stepped on the court basically scored for Alabama. I believe actually that everybody did score, and they got some backups in on this one. It's a comfortable win for Alabama. This was a good matchup for them. Another high offensive team. All you had to do in this game was really get a couple of stops and outscore Charleston. And they did that. They successfully accomplished the mission. Who they face next, we'll find out. Because right now we're waiting to see the results for Grand Canyon and St. Mary's in that second game. Certainly, that's one of the most popular 12-5 matchups out there. That's being talked about. As it stands, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up right now. It is 9-9 with 15 minutes left in the first between Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. So we'll find out who their opponent is later.
Yeah, for that second round matchup, obviously Alabama's got to focus on that defense. I think rebounds are going to be key in that one. Taking a look at their matchup against Charleston, they lost the boards, and 16 of those were offensive rebounds. At Charleston had several possibilities for second chance points. So we know Grand Canyon's a big team. We've talked about them kind of being our upset pick in that matchup. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, when you take a look at it, Charleston's adjusted offense 113.8 and adjusted defense 106.2. Both of these possible matchups, Grand Canyon or St. Mary's, currently 10 to 12 points under Alabama's adjusted offense, but 7 to 8 points better than their adjusted defense. So Alabama's obviously going to have to step up on the defensive end, kind of like we've said all season.
Yeah, certainly so. And I agree with you. There's going to be a lot. I'd worry that Grand Canyon won't be able to keep up with Alabama's offense, but I mean, they're a good basketball team. So something disruptive, just even off shooting night for Alabama could pose a problem. So you definitely want to get that defense still just a little bit better. It's the thing because Alabama's more than capable of outscoring anybody, but sometimes offense doesn't click, especially after you just dumped a ton of energy 2 days prior into a massive basketball game, a winner go home basketball game. So it'd be interesting to find out who that matchup is. All right, so let's talk about a Texas triple threat. Dominant performance from Texas A&M over Nebraska. Never a doubt in this game. Aggies were dominant from the word go in this one. Nebraska, in case you didn't hear it during the broadcast, are the only power conference school to never win an NCAA tournament game. Aggies made sure to keep it that way. Obaseki really opened up the game plan today. Taylor and Radford were just as good scoring as they were passing it in this one. This was an incredible performance. And the Aggies were electric from behind the arc. They hit double-digit three-pointers in this game for a team that's sometimes not the best at three-pointers. But Maddie, your thoughts on this performance by the Aggies over at the Cornhuskers?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Obaseki, definitely a huge key to the game. Somebody that we see step up every now and then, but he's definitely taken the spotlight when it comes to tournament time. He had 22 points, only 3 shy of Wade Taylor this game with 25. Huge, huge assist to this team getting the win. Something I was a little bit surprised about. We didn't see as much of Anderson Garcia in this one. So hopefully whatever's going on with him, they help pick up in the next game, because usually he is a massive contributor.
And let's talk about something else for Texas A&M, for a team that had much higher expectations this season than what they performed with in SEC play and dropped so many quad 3 games, dropped the number of quad 3 games throughout the course of the year. Buzz Williams has this team getting hot at the right time. So that's one good. They did enough to make the tournament coming out of the regular season, judging by their seed. They secured the bid with their win over Kentucky and made the semis in the SEC tournament. Now they got a win over Nebraska in the NCAA tournament. It's really going in the right direction. Well, it's a tough road ahead though for Texas A&M. This is the problem with drawing a 9 seed. They'll likely face Houston, especially judging that game is going on right now between Houston and Longwood. But the last time I looked at the score, it looks comfortably Houston right now. But game is going to go on. That one's going to be a tough one. So pending some Longwood insanity, they're going to likely face the Cougars. And Houston's a solid team with some big time players like LJ Cryer. Really, really a tough team to deal with. These two teams actually met earlier this season in the Toyota Center in Houston. Aggies rallied late in that game, but fell and lost by 4 points. If that's the game we're going to see, we're going to ask ourselves who learned the most from the other team in that first matchup. Maddie, what are you thinking about this potential Houston Texas A&M rematch?
I'm really interested to see this one because I feel like the Texas A&M team that we saw then is different than the one we're seeing right now. That team would drop a game early to Arkansas, who was definitely struggling at that point in time. Not long after that first Houston game, um, we're seeing a different Houston team as well. Start to kind of struggle a little bit more in the season than they were earlier on, possibly just because of their strength of schedule. But I think it's going to be a whole different ball game when you look at it. Wade Taylor's really stepped up through the season, become the strong standout leader on this team. While he was their main bucket getter last year, this one he's more of, like I said, in that leadership role. And then we've had other people step up as you kind of go through the season. Like I said, Anderson Garcia, usually a very pivotal performance from him. Um, when it comes to the Aggies. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how they change up the game plan in this matchup versus the previous one this season.
Certainly so. I don't know if Texas A&M's gonna win this thing by any means, but it's not atypical for a one seed to lose in the second round. Um, and this is the thing: Texas A&M's hot right now. And the way that Houston plays defense, a team with solid isolation basketball has the ability to kind of disrupt some of what the Cougars' aggressive pick and roll defense does. Wade Taylor presents a matchup problem because the guy can create his own shot. So if the Aggies are going to win, to me, this is going to be a game that really depends on Wade Taylor. And he's going to have to be a big, big part of getting that W. Then it's all about offensive consistency and playing well at the pace that you want to play, not the way that Houston wants to play. Houston is going to want to suffocate you on defense and win with a slower pace on offense. They want to kind of cut you off and kind of attack aggressively uh, close to the mid court line, based on how they play defense. So the Aggies present a bad matchup for Houston, but it's certainly a game that the Cougars can win, and they're more than capable of winning. But it's really, this is an interesting game if this is the match, with this being the matchup. Maddie, just some thoughts on that, because like I think Houston's definitely a team a lot of people have going far. They see them going far, but this is an interesting matchup because it's not the Cornhuskers like a lot of people were thinking. It's the Aggies right now, and this is not this is the one team, that coming out of there that actually plays offense in a way that can do something, I feel like.
I have a feeling this is gonna be one of those games. Buzz comes out in his three-piece suit. We see him come out of halftime, in some type of pullover or something like that. And, if you're an Aggies fan, that means it's time to get down to business. So I think we see, kind of a subtle first half from the Aggies in this one until Buzz kind of figures out the game plan, that Houston's gonna go with. And it turns around quick. We see those crazy shots by Wade Taylor. We see some real tournament basketball. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be electric. And I think Houston's going to have their hands full, with a team that they aren't really expecting they're going to have to.
Yeah, it's gonna be an entertaining basketball game. If I Judging by the way the last matchup went and the way the Aggies like to play basketball, I am certainly picking Houston in this one, but it will not surprise me if Texas A&M makes this certainly the most interesting 8-9, 8, or 1-9, 1-8 game, second round matchup for a one seed in this tournament in this second round. To me, this one's got entertainment factor written all over it. If they come out and play the way if Houston's able to force the ball out of Wade Taylor's hands, game goes to Houston, no problem. If Wade Taylor's able to create his own shot in this and play some great isolation basketball, I kind of like waiting for some craziness. Like it could go nuts. We'll see. All
If
right.
it's waiting for craziness, the
I mean, it's
craziness
March.
has already happened.
I mean, it is, but I mean, like craziness in that game. It's certainly a
Oh,
game that has firework potential, depending on how Texas A&M comes out on offense. If Wade Taylor's going, fun, fun game. Still would favor Houston, but fun game and no telling what the result would be if Wade Taylor has a huge performance.
Okay, so you're talking about the good crazy
The good
before
crazy,
we
just
do the bad crazy that's
yeah, oh
happened.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, like I'm always praying for upsets in March. I don't care about my bracket. I want to see craziness. I want to see fun. That's what March Madness is all about. Now we had to talk about the winners first, but the SEC got 8 bids, and at one point it was 1-5 for the SEC in games in the tournament. It really posed the question where the Mountain West was getting all this criticism with the way that they performed, but they were underseeded in most of those games and facing rough matchups. For the SEC, I mean, it was really posing the question for a few minutes of, do we suck? Are we a lot worse than what we thought we were? And I mean, some teams certainly played like it. Now, I am under the impression, and we're going to start getting into these individual teams in just a second, but I am certainly under the impression that some of the teams that lost had some deficiencies, especially on the defensive end. For one team, we're actually two teams, like for Florida and Kentucky, had some bad defensive issues they had to deal with. And then for Auburn, we didn't see them start really racking up quality wins until the SEC tournament. And we're going to get into that just a little bit with the results for Auburn. I still have a lot of questions about that performance for Auburn. So let's get into these. Let's start with Kentucky. Let's how do I talk about this? Kentucky loses to 14 seed Oakland 80-76, and this has been what is certainly the biggest story in the SEC coming out of the first weekend of the tournament. First off, give Oakland a ton of credit. They had a plan to attack, to control the game, and get their key offensive pieces in the best position to get rolling. Top story and player of the game was Jack Olke. I mean, the people in Lexington are going to see this kid in their nightmares for years. Golke is now, of course, a March Madness legend. He was one 3-pointer short of the NCAA tournament record for 3-pointers made in a game. He had 10 3-point field goals made and didn't attempt a 2. Like, dude was just going to light it up from deep. He barely dribbled the ball, too. Oakland was outsized in this game and in the front court, but the unsung guys in this Oakland game, Townsend and Conway, had 16 combined rebounds. Townsend had a double-double with 17 points and 12 rebounds. Really, what the game came down to was that Oakland brought their A game and Kentucky didn't. Effort can win a lot of basketball games, and the story was also on the glass. Oakland beat Kentucky on the rebounds, and they won the offensive glass +3. If Oakland was going to lose this game last night, it was going to be on the free throw line. They managed to leave 10 points at the stripe and shot 56.5%. Maddie, just sing your praises to Oakland real fast, and then we're going to talk Kentucky.
I mean, Oakland over 16% better from the 3-point line than Kentucky. That is not something you can do in March if you're wanting to win basketball games.
It's
As
certainly when Kentucky's the best 3-point shooting team in the country.
exactly, and I mean they weren't far behind Kentucky just from the field either. Less than a 1% difference there, and I mean, you've already brought up Jack Golke. I messaged you in the middle of that game and said, Golke to Arkansas next year. Let's do it. I mean, he was electric. And can we point out that he came off the bench?
Yes, he came off the bench.
Wild for a bench player. Somebody,
Oakland had their own
probably
Rob Dillingham sitting on the bench for them.
exactly. Probably someone that, Kentucky didn't even pay attention to in the scouting report that they absolutely should have because they were blindsided and it was obvious.
Yeah, it was crazy. They had to put Reeves on him on defense in the second half, which is something you should have just done in the first half after he started getting going the way he was. And that helped, certainly helped. But like, man, that adjustment needed to come in a timeout. Not when it did out of the locker room, because after that point, I even texted you, if Oakland starts getting to the paint, it's a problem and they're going to win this basketball game. But yeah, this is what it is. Let's talk about the Cats. This is what's for real, and the other side of the conversation is. We said it all year. Freshmen are eventually going to freshmen, and the number of McDonald's All-Americans and true freshmen in the Final Four has been declining for nearly a decade. It's not the portal alone. Experience is an advantage. We've been preaching it all year, and last night shouldn't have shocked anyone. Surprised, sure. Shocked, absolutely not. That's just the case. And I mean, look at the box score alone. The guys who played the best were Trey Mitchell and Antonio Reeves for Kentucky. Mitchell had a double double, and Reeves put up 27 points. They were the only reason Kentucky was in this game. The freshmen looked unsettled, underprepared for the pressure, and most of them were significantly underperformed to their averages. Dillingham and Edwards had decent games with 10 points, but Dillingham was less than 25% from the field. Wagner had no points. Reed Shepherd didn't hit a bucket until late in the game. He had 3 points, and then Bradshaw had 3 points. Big Z had 3 points. Just no one else was there to help Mitchell and Antonio Reeves in this game. I tweeted out at one point, someone get Antonio Reeves some help, because, like, fact is, no one was stepping up for Kentucky. Nothing about this was shocking. And it's just how college basketball has been moving for over a decade now, or close to a decade now. That's just the reality where we are. Maddie, what did you see in this one? Was there any other things that you want to bring up, or did you see the exact same thing I saw with the freshmen just not executing when it was time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said earlier when we spoke about Tennessee, how well balanced all of their team was. We're looking at the complete opposite here when we look at Kentucky. I mean, you mentioned Antonio Reeves just absolutely up there playing a one-man show. With the exception of Mitchell, he obviously had some major contributions. But also looking over at the turnovers, like you said, freshman get a freshman. Quite a bit of numbers there. From the freshman on the floor, leading to 11 turnovers. I believe I saw the stat earlier, so don't quote me on it, but I think they scored 50% off of turnovers. So the 11 from Kentucky compared to 7 from Oakland, I'd assume those numbers would be much higher when you're thinking of the caliber of the teams there. So just something, you can't have when you're Kentucky and assumed to be one of the most unstoppable when you're looking at a bracket.
Yeah, and this was a team that, I mean, we didn't have them going deep. We certainly didn't. We had them getting past Oakland, which is why I'm saying this was surprising, not shocking, though. And yeah, the guys, they didn't execute. They've never been in this pressure spot before. Oakland, mid-majors live this every year. Every year it's win or go home at the mid-major level when their tournament rolls around. They have to win their tournament to get in. So they're just picking up experience that way too. So when they get to the NCAA tournament, if they have had the benefit of being the NCAA tournament, they get even more experience at it. So it's win or go home. They play under this pressure constantly. Oakland's been playing under that pressure for a week in the Horizon League. So you have guys who have never step foot on in the NCAA tournament besides Trey Mitchell and Antonio Reeves. And I think it's unshocking that those guys are the ones who played the best for Kentucky in this game. Not much contribution anywhere else. But then we got to talk, Maddie, about Cal's role in all this. There was a singular storyline coming into the year. How would he do in March? Would this be the one and done swan song, or has the game passed him by and the one and done era has ran its course? Cal is one of the big names of the sport, but he is not one of the faces of this new generation and era of college basketball. We're learning who those names are right now in this tournament and over the last couple of tournaments for the last couple of years, and everything that's happened. The new faces are younger coaches who are on the rise right now in this sport. We are headed into a new generation of basketball. Cal's not really a part of it. If he's not going to change, if he's not going to change, he's not a part of it. One and done is done. And this is just the era of the transfer portal and experienced basketball players. It's been like this for nearly a decade, longer than the modern transfer rules. But Cal doubled down this season. And what he had to say after the game, this is what he said. We made some crucial mistakes at crucial times today. When you have a really young team and look at where did the mistakes come from, they were freshmen. No joke. No, I mean, that's what it is. No joke. You are the coach. You built this roster. It's your job to make sure these guys are ready to play in March in a situation they've never been in before. But you opted into this and you doubled down for it. But the fact of the matter is, everyone knew this back when the transfer portal closed. Everyone knew what this team was shaping out to be. This team had nothing in favor of them to make a deep run in March. And then Cal lucked out and got Reeves back. And then Trey Mitchell came along after the West Virginia situation with Bob Huggins. That was after decision day. Kentucky was not looking like they were going to be a team that could make a run in March. And they had a very high ceiling, but they also had a floor that could fall out on them any time. They played pretty well in the regular season, but when it came to March, this team wasn't built for March. It just wasn't. I mean, that's just facts. That's just facts. And then Cal has not been up to the quality of other coaches in this league post-COVID. 2021, they missed the tournament. 2022, first round exit against St. Peter's when they were a 2 seed. 2023, second round exit against Kansas State. And then this year, congratulations, you lost to a 14 seed in Oakland. I mean, this is what it is. Maddie, how do you see it?
I mean, we've already started to see it. All the fans are calling for Cal's head at this point. Like you said, it's kind of surpassed Cal at this point. We look at this coach who, is notorious
He's a
for
legend of the game.
all of his players that he has in the NBA. I mean, I believe it was a picture at All-Star Weekend. They had to do a panorama to get all of his players in the picture with him. It's just not the case anymore. You have players that are sticking around, especially with NIL. They have more reason to stay with the program that's going to get them to higher places as they get closer to the NBA. So, I mean, sure, some of these players may stick around, and it may happen in a couple of years if you still have some of these experienced players on your team. But could you imagine what would have happened if Antonio Reeves didn't come back or Trey Mitchell didn't come from another program? I don't think we'd even be talking about Kentucky at this point.
They'd
We'd
probably be an
be
8,
talking
9
about
seed.
another team that overtook them in the SEC.
Yeah, we're talking about a team that's looking like an 8, 9 seed, more than likely. It would have been a really bad year of, by Kentucky standards, because this is not Kentucky standards. And UK fans and Kentucky is handcuffed to pre-2015 basketball until someone forks over $33 million. Well, I mean, what do you do next? What does next year look like? Well, Kentucky's bringing in 6 top 100 basketball recruits who are going to expect playing time and want to make their resumes for the NBA draft, and none of them will have an ounce of NCAA tournament experience. What's the definition of insanity? For Cal, it's apparently thinking that every year is 2012. Like, I just don't get it. But if things stay the way they are right now, and Cal does not execute in the transfer portal, and we're leading a team next year with a bunch of young guys and just 1 or 2 guys who have been in the tournament before, I mean, we're going to be doing the same song and dance next year. We're going to be like, hey, Cal got all these young talented players, and we're going to talk about the lack of freshmen who have made it to the Final Four and how that number's been declining since 2015. And then some Kentucky fans will respond with, well, these freshmen are different, and they'll do it, there'll be a regular response. And then we'll say, like, Kentucky has a high ceiling and a low floor. This is this when it comes time for March, and people will start penciling Kentucky into their bracket all the way to the Final Four. And then there'll be an earlier than expected exit. Sweet 16 or earlier, and we'll say that we'll just have this conversation all over again if things stay the way that they're staying right now. I mean, Maddie, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. I live this every football season. I empathize with Kentucky fans right now. I'm sure there's a ton of Kentucky fans who are right now talking about this the exact same way that I was talking about Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy right now. Like, they're screaming at the top of the lungs that it's like, someone fork over $33 million and let me free of this. I mean, I feel you, because I was screaming at my TV during the Green Bay game during the playoffs this year. I get it. Like that's what this feels like. And I don't care about a divisional title. I want a conference championship or a Super Bowl. Kentucky wants to go to a Final Four or a championship. I get you. I empathize with a lot of people out there in Kentucky and Big Blue Nation because, like, this is not the standard and this is not what you expect from your program, your team, your school if you're an alumni. Like, this is just not expectations. And I feel for them,
Yeah,
but someone has to say it.
we saw Big Blue Nation raise money to put up a billboard to release Big Z. So who knows? They're probably already starting some crowdfunding to help get that buyout bundle together. So we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be a long road for Kentucky fans if he sticks around much longer.
I mean, this is just what it is. And like, sure, if he has a great year next year, if he sticks around, makes a run in the Elite Eight, like there's going to be a lot of Cal apologists out there. But that run will be more of a fluke than what it was supposed to be. Like, I'm just saying, if you don't execute in the portal, then like the odds are against you. They're against you. And that's what data has been saying year after year after year. So I mean, Matt Norlander tweeted out the other day, and he said it on the college basketball podcast that there's a real chance this may have been Cal's last game at Kentucky. We're going to see. And that'll be a huge night if that's the case when that news drops. But right now, if things stay this course, I don't know how, trust me, as a Cowboys fan, I don't know how Kentucky fans are saying sane also. So I understand. I understand. Notice the star behind me here. Trust me, I feel you. I feel you.
I'm assuming it's a lot of the Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah, something. All right. Well, that wasn't the only high seed team that lost to mid-major this on this opening round. Auburn loses to Yale. Yeah, this is the second year in a row an SEC team has lost to an Ivy League team. Mizzou lost to Princeton last year, but this seems much worse. This seems much worse in a way. This will, Yale, the Ivy League's not bad this year. Like let's be frank, but Auburn ends up falling to Yale in this one. Just a really disappointing result for Auburn. Maddie, I texted you. It's like you need to get to this game right now because I know that you were at work and yeah, but Auburn falls in this one 78-76. But what were your takeaways before I get into what I saw about this Auburn game?
The first thought that goes to my head is all that we've heard this season from some Auburn fans about how, they are the best team in the conference and, the blue bloods that are going to take it all in the SEC. I just had to laugh a little bit.
I mean, I'm really not trying to. I don't want to really go after Auburn fans of this one, but I can understand where the humor's coming from. But like, what happened on the court is, to me, just the biggest thing that I took away. Like, there were just moments in this game where it just felt like this is not going to go well. Um, I didn't see this one picked a lot, but I do know some popular names that ended up taking this game and saying, yeah, Yale's going to beat Auburn. Yale played well. They played really well. But like, let's just go over this one. There was a moment in this Auburn game that it got talked about a lot. And that was when Chad Baker-Mazara threw an elbow, and I forget the Yale player's name, but threw an elbow into his torso. While running down the court. And he got ejected from this game very early in the basketball game. To me, that was an extremely low IQ moment by Chad Baker-Mazara, and it cost Auburn part of their depth in this game. It's not all on him, but that was not a key moment. I'm not blaming him, but you can summarize a lot of the differences in this game from that moment. Yale was well coached. They executed their game plan. They wanted to in that game. And let's be real about the Ivy League. This was not a bad Ivy League this year, and Auburn really wasn't ready for what they got today. You could feel what was going to happen in this game midway, probably a little bit earlier in the second half. Auburn could have put their foot on Yale's throat and finished that game multiple times, and they never did. They kept letting Yale stick around. I mean, when you look at all the stats that we normally talk about for moments that you need, or things that you need to do well in a basketball game that'll keep you in any basketball game, Well, Auburn lost all of those statistics. They lost the foul battle, they lost the turnover battle, and they lost the free throws made battle. Yale executed and they took advantage in this at every moment they got. And yeah, to me, Yale looked like they were prepared for this game, had a game plan, executed it, got the job done. They were ready to go. Auburn looked underprepared for this game. Zero excuse for this kind of loss. And to me, from just a what this looked like moment, Auburn's a more experienced basketball team. Ben Brandon pointed this out too. He had the same thought. Um, this was a little bit more embarrassing than Kentucky losing to Oakland, in my opinion. Like it's kind of a hot take, but like in all honesty, like I know the expectation for Big Blue Nation is here, but this was an Auburn team that just got done winning the SEC tournament. Looked really good coming out of it. Has a lot of experience on this team, and is a team that's crafted a little bit better to make a run in March. And they drop a game to Yale. That you just what do you say? What do you say after that? I
Yeah, I
don't.
mean, there's not much to say. I mean, you look at this Auburn team, and part of me wonders if coaching strategy played a ginormous part because you saw, like you said, they dominated in the SEC tournament, but they've seen those teams time and time again. They come up with a team that they've never experienced before, especially a team that may have been a little undervalued coming into the tournament, and everything broke loose. And we saw that, especially with, you mentioned Chad Baker Mazara. I'd seen a few cheap shots from him throughout the season, and I knew at some point it was going to catch up with him. And NCAA tournament's not the time to do it, but
No, it's not. It's the worst time to do it. It's the worst time to do it. Don't throw that elbow. Don't do it. I don't care if you're showing the other guy that you're going to be here the rest of the game because the ref has value in this, and this is do or die. And then he also tweeted from the locker room too, so just makes everything even better.
yeah, it's just like you said, an embarrassing loss for Auburn. One that, I think pretty much everybody overlooked it, like you said, except for a few notable people that picked Yale. Pretty sure the majority of brackets, especially people listening to this podcast, had an easy pick when it came to Auburn, and not one people were expecting. So definitely something that is turning a lot of heads and making people look deeper into the Auburn program.
This game was like the game that was going to be the catalyst point for Auburn's tournament run was being circled for San Diego State versus Auburn. That was the second round game was supposed to be the game that if they do this, then we'll see what happens. Like that was the game that everybody was kind of circling and was paying the most attention to. Yale felt like okay, they could get into a battle, but like they're the better team. Like Auburn should beat Yale. Just did not execute. For Bruce Pearl, and we're talking about coaching a little bit here. Like Bruce Pearl hasn't made the second weekend of the tournament since he made the Final Four. That I don't know what to tell anybody on this one, and it's gonna be a year where Auburn fans are gonna look back and they're gonna ask questions. Should they have played a tougher non-conference schedule? Why did this team underperform on the road sometimes against some of the better competition in SEC play? And how much different is the perception of this program if Bruce Pearl doesn't sweep by New Mexico State back in 2019 for that Final Four run? There's going to be a lot of questions asked, and this is crazy. This is crazy. I know there's some overreaction right now saying Bruce Pearl should be gone, but I don't think it's unreasonable to question what happened in this game. And did Bruce Pearl have his guys ready to go for this one? Like I said, Yale just looked much better prepared. They were the least talented team, but they ran the better game plan, and they were more prepared for this basketball game. Just at the end of the day. Maddie, let's go over some of these other results in the tournament. First off, let's talk about South Carolina. It was a less than ideal result for South Carolina against Oregon. Kuznard went off for 40 points for the Ducks and just had an unbelievable performance. Oregon stays hot after their run in the Pac-12 tournament, ends up beating South Carolina at 87-73. I know the season didn't end like South Carolina wanted to, but this team has nothing to hang their head about, in my opinion. It stings now, but look at what this team's been able to accomplish this season. This team was picked last in the SEC. They finished toward the top of the SEC. No one gave them a chance to make the tournament. They made a 6 seed. This has been a phenomenal year too for Lamont Paris. Maddie, do you agree with that? And just general thoughts on South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him early on in the season, saying, Lamont Paris did a great job in his first year. We had high expectations for him the second year, but everybody else got better, so it would only seem marginal. Obviously, this is much, much higher than any expectations that we could have predicted for them. I think it is a great springboard for Lamont Paris, kind of getting his name out there. That was kind of the narrative as we got towards the tournament. People didn't think that they were gonna even be able to smell the NCAA tournament, let alone play decent against a number 11 seed Oregon. So, fantastic season for South Carolina, and I think it's really only the beginning because you've definitely got more eyes on this program than you had last year, year before, you name it, with the exception of what was happening on the women's side. Now you've got the men's and women's both performing exceptional in college basketball. So I think, there's a lot to look forward to in this program.
It was a good year for South Carolina. End of discussion on that one. Again, this team, this fan base, no one's got nothing to hang their head about. No one can take away what this team was able to accomplish this season in a year no one expected anything out of them. It was a great job by South Carolina and Lamont Paris. He deserved Coach of the Year. He did a great job. All right, some of the other results also. What did we learn? My friend Jay pointed out to me a million times. Don't bet against don't bet against Izzo in March. Mississippi State falls to Michigan State. I thought State would do better, but this team did a great job this year and continues to be a better program. Team was firmly in the NCAA tournament this year and certainly are showing that they have a bright future as long as Jans is there. I believe if State continues there's improvement. A second weekend is coming sooner rather than later for the Bulldogs. They have a promising future. This is a program that's building and it's on the rise too. I don't think they have much to hang their heads about either in this one. Sure, they probably wanted a better result, but you draw Izzo in March, it's going to be a tough break. I'm a fool. I should have learned my lesson. You,
Same.
you don't pick against Izzo in March. It's just the law of the land. No matter how confident you are in a team and say, "Hey, they look really good," but is what it is. Florida also drops a heartbreaker to Colorado. Got a feel for them. They had a shot and they had the ball last in that game. Just couldn't defend without fouling the entire game. It was a good year too for Florida overall. Golden's did a pretty good job. You just expect a little bit more out of them based on how they played at the end of the year. Unfortunate loss for the Gators. Team that I thought could go a little bit deeper in March, but one of those teams that certainly had a better feeling ceiling, and but unfortunately they had the floor too. Also really dug the t-shirts that they had with Micah Hanlogden's name on there. They came out with it warm-ups. All right,
Yeah,
Maddie. So go ahead.
that was my big thing for Florida. I couldn't help while watching that game, but what would be different if they did have Han Longden in there? I think we'd be talking probably a different story if they had him out on the floor, had that better defensive effort. We know a lot of the defensive motor came from him. So, you know, an interesting what if there, but I think, like you said, on to bigger and better things as we continue on to next season.
Florida's a program getting back to a little bit more of what the Florida standard is, that was left behind with the tradition of Billy Donovan. So I think Florida's going in a good direction. I know it's a loss. Defense caught up with them. Their defense has caught up. They're one of those teams that just did not have a great defense built together on this one. And it's been, other than Alabama, Kentucky, and Florida, were just two of those teams that did not have great defenses. South Carolina's defense wasn't particularly great, but they were a little bit more balanced of a team. But yeah, Florida's defense definitely caught up with them today. All right, Maddie, let's go around the horn and let's talk about these these non-SEC games left in the tournament. We'll go around these pretty quick. Let's start with the East region. UConn versus Northwestern. Maddie, who you got in this one? Northwestern wins in overtime today against the FAU Owls. What are your thoughts and who do you like in this one?
I thought it was great effort by Northwestern. That was a game I kept checking in on. Unfortunately,
Just
an
felt
overtime
last
win
bad
against
minute handled by
FAU is
FAU.
not really gonna do much against UConn. We talked about UConn possibly being the first back-to-back since Florida, so I'm thinking that narrative is gonna stick, and we're gonna see UConn continue to advance.
Yeah, I'm going with UConn. Also, they had a dominant performance today against Stetson, winning 91-52. Yeah, I'm looking for UConn to make my Sweet 16. All right, let's continue in the East. We got San Diego State versus Yale in this one. Maddie, does Yale do it again and make the Sweet 16, or is San Diego State? They got some unfinished business with UConn that they might have a date for in the Sweet 16, possibly. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking Yale is probably bouncing back to the East Coast, and we are going to see San Diego State continue their run towards Arizona.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I like San Diego State over Yale. It's a great win for Yale, but yeah, I think San Diego State can get the job done. They did just squeak by UAB. You did like UAB on the other night when we were talking about this first round. So props for you on that one. They gave them a fight, but yeah, San Diego State just a little better. Duquesne versus Illinois. Maddie, thoughts on this one? Who do you got?
David, I'm so mad at you for talking up BYU so much
I
that I
like BYU.
continued to move them forward on my bracket. But, I should have done my own research, should have kept looking. Didn't know much about Duquesne, but they surprised me. So, they had a great game against BYU, but I do think Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to get it done for Illinois and continue their hope to get deeper in March.
Yeah, I certainly expected more out of BYU. Felt like they didn't get it going until late in that game against Duquesne, and Duquesne just really attacked the opportunity. They were aggressive in everything they did, and they really disrupted BYU's rhythm. I mean, I did have BYU circled as a team with a low floor and a high ceiling. Had them in my bronze picks, and we'll go over those and see who's remaining when we get to the end of this. But yeah, really funny scenario in this tournament. If you have an intentionally underseeded BYU because of religious rules and an overseeded Duquesne team because of all the upsets during conference championship week. And of course, it's March, so the overseeded 11 seed team ends up winning the basketball game. I am concerned about Illinois' defense. Morehead State gave them a run for a while before Illinois really woke up and started using their size down low to take over that game. But still, if Duquesne stays aggressive in this one, no telling what can happen in this basketball game. I got Illinois, but this seems like a March value meal to me. There's enough deficiencies on Illinois to allow chaos to happen. But I'm with you. I'm going. I'm gonna end up. I'm with you. I'm gonna go Illinois in this one. All right, Iowa State and Washington State. What are your thoughts here?
I'm going to go Iowa State in this one. Um, you know, they look good. And Washington State, a team that I didn't have even selected to get out of the first round. So I'm gonna go Iowa State here. I think they're gonna be able to get it done.
I'm with you. I like the Cyclones defense. It's really darn good, and they definitely were on full display against the Jackrabbits. Washington State's capable. They got some dudes. They play in a funky way of playing basketball, and we'll see how it pans out for them. But yeah, I think the smart money is on Iowa State, but I mean, it's March, and it's not like any of my picks have really done great in the individual matchups. But all right, let's talk about the West region. North Carolina versus Michigan State, two of the most recognizable names in the sport. This is an interesting matchup. Don't bet against Izzo in March is a consistent lesson that I'll never learn. And then North Carolina, has been a very good team this year. I'm not the biggest believer in North Carolina, but there's nothing they're I'm not the biggest believer in South Carolina, but there's nothing that the Heels have done that says that they can't win this basketball game to me. Michigan State has a great defense, of course, and a great coach, but looking back in the season, Michigan State is 1-5 against the top 10 in KenPom this season. I'm going to go Carolina in this one, but don't write off Michigan State. Maddie, who do you got?
Yep, give me that baby blue. The Tar Heels look good, and they're looking more dominant than they have for the rest of the season. Honestly, to me, got to go with my good friend Jan Miller's Hills, and I'm gonna take North Carolina.
RJ Davis and Armando Bacot move on. All right, so Clemson team. A lot of people were like going, New Mexico's winning this thing. Clemson did not like that narrative clearly and dominated New Mexico in that one. Gets the job done, 77-56, and they're taking on Baylor, who beat Toothpaste. Toothpaste is just fun to pick at this point, and it's never going to happen. But you just think eventually, like surely as many times as Colgate's made the tournament, they're going to do it eventually. This is not going to happen. I thought Baylor's defense might give them an opportunity, but we had Clemson versus Baylor. Maddie, who you like in this one?
This one's kind of a coin flip for me. I picked neither of those teams going into this one, so I'm gonna go with the Bears. just because I think the coaching is a little more stable on that side of things. So I think they're going to have a better game plan going into this one and be able to overcome the Tigers.
Baylor is a team, like I said, their defense has just not been great. Ken Palm's got this one pretty close, 75-73 at 60%. I'm gonna rock Clemson in this one. I'm probably gonna continue to drop off a couple of my big time picks. Like I only lost 3 through this first weekend. So I'm gonna see if another one gets scratched off here. Clemson was in my 10 category because I moved them down after that ACC game and then moved Texas up. So for me, I'm gonna go Clemson and see if they can stay hot in this one. Seems kind of interesting. All right, hell of a comeback by Dayton against Nevada. And that was the game I knew that my bracket was not going to do well this season. It was going to look like Swiss cheese, but geez, that was a crazy comeback. Holmes had a big game for the Flyers, and they'll be taking on Arizona, who remains a team that I really like. Second half was all Wildcats against the Beach. Love, Ballo, and Boswell. Yeah, they can do damage for Arizona. Maddie, who do you got in this one?
I mean, I've got Arizona taking it all the way to the national championship. So I'm gonna keep rocking with them. I think the Wildcats have what it takes to make a long run in
I,
this
I like
tournament.
I agree with you. I'm going to stick with my platinum pick and put them in the Sweet 16. Give me Arizona. All right, let's move on to the South region. There's still some games going on here in this one. But, we talked about just a little bit of the Houston situation. They got past Longwood, and they're going to be facing Texas A&M. We talked about that a little while ago. Still waiting on the result for James Madison, Wisconsin in that game. So we'll see who faces Duke. So let's jump on down to North Carolina State and Oakland. DJ Burns and the red hot North Carolina State Wolfpack taking on the Jack Golke, who's the future NBA legend and the Steph Curry of this tournament. Maddie, who do you like between the Wolfpack and the Golden Grizzlies?
Not to discount the game that they had against Kentucky, but I'm feeling the burn. Let's go NC State.
Yeah, this was a game that totally everybody expected in their bracket. No doubt, everyone had this for sure. The 11 seed taking on the 14 seed. We got the team that won the ACC tournament, and even they had to win the ACC tournament to even make the tournament. And oh boy, it's gone crazy. This game defines March Madness. Let's be real. And sure as a double digit seed will make the Sweet 16 this year. DJ Burns is becoming one of the most fun players in this tournament to watch. Huge frame, great passing instincts for a big man. I expect him to own the interior in this game. NC State can defend the 3 a little bit a couple of times this game, I feel like. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Wolfpack in this one. Marquette versus Colorado. Maddie, who do you got?
Give me Marquette moving on in this one. I think they're just going to be a little bit too much offensively for Colorado to handle.
I also like Shaka Smart to get the job done in this one. It was a hard press game against Florida for Colorado to get by. Narrowly avoided overtime in that one. I'm going to go Marquette in this. They're a decent team. I'm feeling it. So I'm going to go ahead and move Marquette in the Sweet 16 as well. All right. So we're still waiting the results for Utah State and TCU. So let's jump down to Gonzaga and Kansas in this one. Oh, my goodness. Samford just got messed over against Kansas. One of the worst calls we've seen in the tournament so far, and arguably all year. Whistle went blue blood, and with the game defining play, hopefully this creates enough controversy in the future where we might be able to get a coach's challenge in college basketball. I will take less reviews in exchange for a conference or for a coach's challenge. I'm just saying. Yeah. So, and then of course McNeese State was a super popular upset against Gonzaga. But yeah, few and self move on. Who would have thought otherwise? There's certainly a path for Mark Few to get back to the Sweet 16 again this season. Who do you like, Gonzaga or Kansas?
You know, uh, I would have 9 times out of 10 probably picking Kansas with this one, but just based on that game that they played against Samford, based on some of the health concerns over at on the Jayhawks side, I really, really hate that I'm about to say this, but I'm gonna go with Mark Few, taking Zaga on this one.
I'm with you. Yeah, the health is the biggest thing with me right now with Kansas. Just a really banged up team that I'm not expecting to get much further in this tournament. So I'm with you. I'm going to go Gonzaga in that one. Let's talk about Creighton and Oregon. Last game we're going to talk about here. Who do you like, the Blue Jays or the Ducks, and Dana Altman and the Ducks?
Give me Creighton in this one. I think the Blue Jays have a solid squad. Not only with their starting five, but they have a pretty deep bench too. Um, while we did see them, excel against South Carolina, we've got a little more experience on the Creighton side of things. So, I think they're gonna take this one pretty easily.
I'm with you. Give me Creighton, Trey Alexander, Baylor Shireman, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Absolutely, those three guys can play some basketball. Really, to me, Creighton looked all the part of a 3 seed in that second half against Akron. They got done playing with them and just took care of business. So I got the Blue Jays. I think that creates a great matchup if it's Tennessee and Creighton in the Sweet 16. That'd be an amazing game. Of course, the ball's got to take care of business against Texas first, but we'll see how that goes. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We hope we've earned you a subscribe, at least for next season for you guys who are done. And for those of you who are still on it, the rest of the tournament. For you guys who are done for the year, we get some great content coming up for the NBA draft and transfer portal coming up this offseason. Of course, we talk hoops all season. But for you guys who are still in the tournament, we'll be back Monday. So please like and subscribe and follow us anywhere you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you guys real soon with it being the tournament.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend and enjoy some basketball.